Hello everyone, Pineaaronapple here with my first Christmas review, my favourite Christmas movie, The Muppets Christmas Carol. Yes, based on the Charles Dickens story of the same title, minus Muppets. This film recreates the story but with songs, MichAeL CaInE and, well, Muppets, as probably at least 80% of the cast here are Muppets, or whatever in fresh hell this ghost is. And as a bonus, for anyone not in the know, we will be going through the extended version, now apparently on Disney+, including all the little bits that people in the past lamented on being gone. So will the film hold up to my nostalgic image, or will it be as rife with problems as the Muppet brand is currently facing? Let's find out. After the great opening credits soaring across the rooftops, crediting the Muppets as themselves a great touch, we come down to the ground level, where immediately I find this spectacle great on an entertaining and technical level. The way both the human and Muppets are integrated into the set, as well as how they work together to create a cohesive world, are done so quickly yet cement the standing of the scenery and world for the rest of the film. Finally, we are introduced to Gonzo as Charles Dickens, our fourth wall breaking narrator, and Rizzo the Rat as Rizzo. We will see these two throughout the movie as the narrators, but them also being in the background of the story later is a great change to the original narrator trope, and opens the way for far more comedic moments and time for the original story's words and intent to come across. Gonzo, who I will just call Gonzo from now on, no matter how the credits try to tell you, I can't believe anyone would look at him now and think, oh, that's definitely Charles Dickens, before thinking, Gonzo! He introduces us to the film and we immediately get his and Rizzo's dynamic. I love these two for the most part, they work off each other pretty well, I must say. Gonzo begins the story starting with the death of the Marleys, who were the late business partners of Ebenezer Scrooge, who promptly rounds the corner. What can I say about this introduction that hasn't been said? Removed from the pretty decent song, the way that Scrooge is shot is terribly imposing. Even the use of shadows is great, giving the audience a hint of his personality and standing before the song comes in to introduce him. I'm not fully into the delivery of the song, but I feel content in stating that the instrumental track, the lyrics, and the staging are all pretty well planned. And with the end of the song, we are given our first good look at our Lord and Saviour, MichAeL CaInE as Scrooge. Yes, I absolutely love MichAeL CaInE as an actor, and even without the build-up from the song, his single glare and delivery are both a fantastic start to this character.
Humbug.
Working for Scrooge as a key player in the story is Bob Cratchit, played by Kermit the Frog, the complete antithesis of Scrooge's current apathy. A family man putting up with Scrooge's bullshit to feed his family of strange and unusual pig-frog genus. Scrooge quite literally throws a man out of his office, getting ready to evict the man who can't pay off his mortgage on Christmas. Sometimes in any version of this story, really, I feel as if sometimes the extent of Scrooge's demeanour is very well shown, but sometimes, especially after many watches, the sheer volume of cruel deeds he commits starts to seem a little overboard and too comedic for the character. Bob and his rat workmates are given a lot of work for Christmas, as Scrooge gives this fantastic face, as he describes how the Christmas rush will give his types lots of business. By that, meaning able to suck people dry of their money, and when they know they will never be able to get out of the interest hole, kick them out of their homes. Bob attempts to ask for some more coal for the bookkeepers, even such a simple thing displaying the cruelty of Scrooge as he laughs Bob away after yelling at him. Scrooge's nephew and only relative comes by, leaving an opportunity for Gonzo and Rizzo to escape the cold. The nephew does a great job opposing Scrooge's demeanour. To add fuel to the fire of cruelty, some charity collectors come around to ask the ever-wealthy Scrooge for a donation. Scrooge tells his nephew to piss off after being granted an invitation to Christmas dinner. Us also learning of Scrooge's negative leaning on not only the Christmas season and poor, but also love. Even the Grinch would like a word to tell him his heart's a little too small. After ignoring them, much like Fred, he tells the charity men to get out. And I'm not sure, but I think Beaker might have just given Scrooge the finger. Not unwarranted, mind you. A caroller comes around after and is promptly beaten by a wreath via Scrooge. This Muppet is apparently named Bean Bunny, who, much like in this movie after being created, was made the Muppet punching bag. Later that same night, closing time comes around and Scrooge expects to see his workers bright and early for Christmas Day. After a convincing argument from Bob, Scrooge eventually caves and heads home, leaving Bob to clean up. This enters our next song. It's not my favourite, but Kermit is never bad at singing, and the rats do well for comic relief in the background. Once continuing the song outside, we see what is, to me at least, the first noticeable CGI. With one or two of these penguins, and a fun skating move from Kermit and Gonzo. Although I do have to say, with the way that the Muppets usually play on perspective, it is strange to see Kermit standing there on his own 2 feet. Bean Bunny is abused again, and Scrooge returns home shadowed by Gonzo, who reminds us the Marleys are very, very dead. Kind of contented when one of their faces appears on the door knocker, howling at Scrooge before promptly disappearing. Our narrated duo are left outside as Scrooge continues into his dark home, checking the whole thing to make sure he's free of ghosts. Hell, I'd do exactly the same thing in his position. Gonzo's omniscience is questioned as Scrooge completes lighting his home, settling in, but not before shitting himself at the sight of a dressing gown. He eats his dinner alone, accompanied by a great score, really letting you know how alone and empty his life is. What I assume is his doorbell rings, off the hook as his fire dies, a creepy atmosphere setting in, helped by the same continuing score as the Marleys, played by Statler and Waldorf, come to do what else but heckle him. Scrooge questions his sanity with a continue of his great performance, as we are led into arguably the best musical number of the film, Don't At Me, where the Marleys describe how their despicable deeds in life determined their poor afterlife, serving as a warning to Scrooge. And these two are hilarious.
There was the year we evicted the entire orphanage. I remember the little tykes all standing in the snowbank with their little frostbitten teddy bears.
Their purgatory is embodied by the chains surrounding them in a pretty haunting visual for the Muppets that CaInE sells expertly. The Marleys give Scrooge the well-known warning of the 3 ghosts of Christmas, the first to arrive at 1. They also give a nice bookend to their song by warning Scrooge to change before we fade out and are brought back to the room as the fire reignites. Gonzo and Rizzo get some more laughs attempting to get to Scrooge's window as he turns in. Scrooge's clock tolls 1, waking him up as he is visited by this fucking nightmare creature. I'm sure many have touched upon how disturbing this thing is. Its face paired with its childlike voice. Ignoring that, this is the ghost of Christmas past, who takes Scrooge on a soar above the town. They arrive in the past, reaching Scrooge's childhood. This was a young Scrooge's Christmas, as we see his first shades of levity as he reminisces, learning that he can't interact with the past. The way that Scrooge talks with the spirits is something almost resembling kindness and understanding is a great character detail in this performance. The disdain he shows towards all people is seemingly wiped away when talking to these otherworldly creatures. Whether intentional or not, I still think that this disparity between how he treats the ethereal and real people is great, especially when these two sides of him mix while meeting present, but we'll see that soon. Scrooge's disdain for Christmas is shown early, as his child form never went home for Christmas, seeking to study in solitude. We jump forward a Christmas or two, Scrooge set in his ways as the world evolved around him. His favourite teacher comes in, played by Sam the Eagle, who starts to cement his work values. Sam tries his best as the child. Scrooge gives the appropriate look for a child suddenly confronted by a Muppet as if it were normal, and the spirit takes our Scrooge forward to his first job, in Fozziwig's rubber chicken factory. And we are graced with such poetry as...
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
My apologies.
Fozziwig, played by, well, what other Muppet but Fozzie Bear. Our four characters head inside in time to see the Marleys pre-death, and Fozzie's Christmas party to start. The band starts, and by the saints, I've never seen such a terrible and depressing sight as Animal not being allowed on the drums. Only the triangle. I hope he seeks help after such a traumatic experience. A young adult Scrooge continues his Christmas lamenting before being told to enjoy himself, and finally, having enough, Animal starts the party for real. Scrooge bumps into Belle, his first love, gracing us with another fantastic and simple performance from CaInE, as he desperately seeks to not relive his outcome with her. This Christmas, 1 year before their wedding, that Ebenezer puts off until their money is in a better position, does well to show his way of lifestyle, and that it's too much for Belle, who decides to leave him, continuing into the first human-focused musical number. Apparently, upon widespread release, this song, Love Is Gone, was removed from the film and relegated to the extras, only reintroduced for the Disney Plus and Blu-ray releases. Apparently this was at the behest of the chairman of Disney at the time, as apparently it tackled too deep a theme for the children to be invested in without Muppets flying all over the screen. Although I would argue it's no deeper than a man obsessed with himself and grown weary from the real world, learning to give up on others to be merry after being visited by many ghosts who show him the consequences of his actions. This song is fine. But even when not for me, I think it deserves to be in here. Not just for Meredith Braun's great performance, but MichAeL CaInE's acting as Scrooge, both recalling her words along with her, and reliving the pain in them at the same time. It also gives a reason for Rizzo to be sad, as in the original cut, I don't recall there being much in the way of words to send him to such hysterics. Scrooge pleads with the ghost for no more, asking why it tortures him, but tells him that it was his life as he fades back into his bedroom with a lovely, simplified instrumental version of When Love Is Gone. Clock hits 2, meaning the appearance of the next ghost, the Ghost of Christmas Present. I love the Ghost of Christmas Present here, literally embodying a jolly giant, and I'm sure that many have picked up on his absent-minded nature that I think lends well to the motif as being in the present. Scrooge starts apprehensive, but the cheer of the spirit's attitude allows for levity in Scrooge's performance, not seen before. Scrooge unpacks with his spirit and admits that he's never really understood Christmas. These two apparate into the street on Christmas morning. That is, hours ahead of time, so it's not really the present, it's the future. That is probably my only problem with this story. Everyone bar this abused child is prancing merrily in the snow, leading the spirit into his musical number. His singing is very good throughout the song, even if the song and its message are a little predictable and obvious. Although for a seemingly imperceivable spirit, people do seem to react to him. The range of emotion CaInE shows through this song also adds miles to it, from mild confusion when seeing the street urchin's cheeriness, and the levity we saw before coming through. I mean, look at his dance. Either CaInE is playing a very happy Scrooge, or he came onto the set very drunk. There's no third option. Scrooge, seeking this new outlook on Christmas, he asks to see family, arriving at Fred's Christmas lunch. They play a guessing game that Scrooge attempts to join in on, even though imperceivable. But it ends up being at the expense of Scrooge himself, and if I didn't worship at the altar of CaInE enough here, his facial expressions, from a small stint of rage to the despair of the situation, are magnificently performed. Next on their tour is Bob's house, while Rizzo is annoying. They peek into the Cratchit's home, and we meet his family. The ever-strangely performed Miss Piggy as his wife, his 2 pig daughters, and a frog son. They have some strange genetic coding in their bloodline. Piggy and her spawn are fine, if a little apprehensive to watch, but coming down the road is Bob and his sick youngest son, Tiny Tim, singing a decent song. They head inside to join their family for Christmas dinner. We are pretty successfully shown the importance of Tiny Tim, the sick boy who still carries himself forward for the sake of everyone else. A quality even Scrooge remarks as, well, remarkable. Although I don't entirely feel that he nails the whole wise beyond his years quality that those who talk about the original are insistent on. Bob names the meal for Scrooge, momentarily thinking that Bob can see him. Although Piggy has other ideas, like watching him die. The Muppets, everyone. Although her daughter's hilariously insistent on Piggy's words. Tiny Tim now gets a song for himself and his family that leaves a great visual impression on Scrooge. I never really got into this song, but I can't say it lacks quality in any capacity either. The spirit starts to grow old and tells Scrooge that it's almost time for the future to come, and that if things don't change, Tim will surely die. The present fades and the spirit brings Scrooge to a graveyard, now on the strike of 12? Strange time travel there. The present disappears with a strange multicoloured twinkling effect. Scrooge states that he has changed thanks to the spirit, but now comes to the spirit of the future, that Scrooge is more than a little scared to meet, as a cloud of smoke envelops the graveyard. And if you thought the Ghost of Christmas Past looked creepy as a child, there is no way you would be ready for this. This Big Bird Grim Reaper looking ass is the Ghost of Christmas Future, who is displayed with a menacing theme almost belonging to a Bowser boss fight in a Mario game. I find the insistence that this spirit says nothing, it doesn't even damn pity nor cheer Scrooge, as being very clever and adds to the creepiness. It purely uses the visuals that the other ghosts implored to tell the future. Scrooge thinks that he is far more ready this time, and they take a creepy-ass portal to the future. Our first stop is these banker pigs speaking of a sudden death, seeking to find the poor blighter's money. The rain accompanying this dark future does well to emphasise the poor state of the future, but I think it's a little too on the nose thematically. Next, Scrooge sees the creeps who seem to steal from the previously dead man's house. And they are entertainingly cruel. Scrooge doesn't put together that it's him, but can guess that it might represent a man like him. In a state of vulnerability, he asks the spirit to see some tenderness, so it leads him to Bob's house, where Scrooge hears no happiness. Wow, this spirit's a dick. Scrooge peers in and seeks what he feared, that they have their first feast without Tim. It's very easy to see the disparity between the two evenings they've shown. Scrooge asks how they could possibly endure a dinner like that. And in a nice touch in this awfully sad scene, the exact picture that Present described comes to fruition. The empty seat with the hat and cane that were once adorned by Tim. Scrooge and the future return to the graveyard as Scrooge fears his final lesson. He asks the honestly hard question,
Who was the wretched man whose death brought so much glee and happiness to others?
And begs to know whether what he has seen can be changed, as he sees the tombstone with his own name written upon it. Cain brings his A-game as he pleads and renounces his actions to change the future he was shown, and is brought back to his room on Christmas morning with a new sense of glee. Even Rizzo and Gonzo are back. Clearly, the Ghost of Christmas Future banned them from his vision, so no one would be allowed any sort of levity. As expected, Scrooge has changed, ready for Christmas, as the first good thing to happen to Bean Bunny happens, as Scrooge asks him to get the prized turkey from the butcher's, with shilling as recompense. And Scrooge will bring it to Bob's house. Even if expected, the shift in Scrooge's demeanour is very entertaining, and even fits Cain just as well. In his happiness, Scrooge even offers to give a fortune to the donation collectors from earlier, even getting what is probably his first Christmas gift, in return which he immediately wears with pride. And I don't know why, but this scene would not dare to hit as hard if it were anyone but Beaker doing this. Scrooge jumps into the penultimate song of the movie with Bean Bunny in tow, using his fortunes to purchase many gifts for Bob, background characters, and those we saw in visions, such as his role models, the mice, his bookkeepers, and his relatives. Cain isn't the best singer, but the fact that this song is coming from Scrooge does well to fit the tone. As the song ends, he makes his way to Bob's house, and shoos off his posse momentarily, and decides to pull a prank on him. I love this scene, but after some assault threats, he ends up both raising Bob's salary and paying his mortgage, joining them for their Christmas dinner. Although I think their house is a little over capacity. Good thing it initially seems only Muppets decide to stick around. According to Gonzo, these actions also stopped the death of Tiny Tim, Scrooge becoming a role model of his. Tiny Tim and Scrooge sing us out to the credits with a rearrangement of When Love Is Gone called When Love Is Found. Wait a minute, how did Fred get there? Did he leave his wife back at home and have dinner without her? Are we going to have to do a sequel about him being an arse? Hopefully not. Gonzo finally tells us to read the book, and the credits roll with Presents laugh and a return of his song. So, how was The Muppets Christmas Carol? This is probably my favourite interpretation of the story I've seen. I mean, I've been praising it this whole time. What other way did you think this review would go? MichAeL CaInE is phenomenal as Scrooge, getting his villainy down at the beginning and keeping his character grounded as he goes through his progression through each spiritual visit. All the Muppets also work well in the sets and don't detract away from the story or the direction like a lot of people might think. But the combination of great puppet and voice work paired with the specially built sets makes them feel quite natural in the scenes. Although there is one that I think could have done with a redesigning. The fourth wall narrator isn't the most original idea, but works well enough in the story. Believe it or not, originally Charles Dickens did not intend for the story to be a musical, but even if not all the songs tickle my fancy, they are pretty competently put together and performed. I give The Muppets Christmas Carol a 9 out of 10. Thank you everybody so much for watching this review of The Muppets Christmas Carol. Please like the video if you liked it. Write a comment down below if you wish and consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so you're told every single time that I make an upload. I hope to see you all again next year, and once again, thank you for watching my content. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.